Let's bring in Danny Ayalon, Israeli diplomat. Good to see you this evening. You heard what Tom Fletcher had to say just then. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, he's described this declaration of famine in Gaza City as utterly horrifying, also accusing the Israeli government of causing a man-made catastrophe. What's your response?
I'll tell you, Jonathan, I have some difficulties to sympathize with this dramatic cause. For two reasons. First, we have not seen these dramatic calls when we had much worse famine, whether it was in Sudan or in Syria or anywhere else. Here, when it comes to Hamas or the Palestinians, we see the whole world coming and pouncing on Israel. Now, I do not deny that the situation in Gaza is very severe. Also, it has to be noted that the responsible for this situation is Hamas. And I don't want to recall again the 7th of October and everything that since happened then. But there is also some objective, I would say, characteristic that has been missing here, because all those reports coming out of Gaza, we did not see those people in Gaza itself. So what do? They rely on Hamas information. And we know that Hamas information is at fault, if not downright a lie. And this is why Israel came out with a counter report which shows quite a different situation. Now, this is not to say, Jonathan, that we look very carelessly or callously at what's happening in Gaza. We really feel for the people of Gaza, but we also feel for our own protection. And this is why I think the responsibility is for Hamas. And this is why we would very much like to see an end of it and the end of Hamas regime in Gaza.
So the IPC did declare a famine in Somalia in 2011, South Sudan in 2017, again in 2020, and in Sudan in 2024. So all those famines that were announced by the IPC were correct, but this announcement by the IPC that there's famine in Gaza is incorrect. Is that what you're saying?
First of all, they may have declared it, but they did not make out such a cry around the world as they did now. I heard Mr. Fletcher, and he seems like it's just hell on earth, and it's not quite that. And in Somalia and Sudan, there were professional people there. They checked them. It's not the case in Gaza, where they rely on Hamas, which is a very interested party. And also, I would beg everyone to look at the pictures from Sudan and Somalia with all those babies, with blown up bellies. You do not see this in Gaza, and those in Gaza who have died did not necessarily die of famine because they had prior conditions.
Let me just put a couple of things to you. The IPC has asked Israel to allow better surveys since December 2023, but Israel isn't allowing full humanitarian data collection. Independent journalists aren't allowed into Gaza either to witness it with our own eyes. But what we can do is speak to people who are in Gaza, people like Tess Ingram from UNICEF. She says it's the worst case of famine she's ever seen. She's met a little girl called Noor, born healthy at 4 kilograms, now at 14 months weighs just 5 kilograms, half of what she would weigh. These are people who are witnessing on a daily basis what is going on in Israel, because the Israeli government won't allow independent journalists like us to do that for ourselves.
Well, first of all, I do hope that journalists will be able to go into Gaza. I can tell you that the Israeli press also is pushing very much on the IDF to go into Gaza. Of course, there is always the issue of security and other things, but I hope that this will be corrected, because I believe that once international press will be in and check individual cases, and again, there are individual cases which are horrifying, and again, and we all feel for that. But these are peculiar cases which do not actually represent the entire state of what's happening in Gaza.
Well,
And
we're hearing thousands. We're hearing thousands of people are malnourished and not getting the food they need. When will Israel allow the amount of aid in that is necessary?
well, if you look at the amount of food that has been coming into Gaza for the last 6 weeks, there cannot be famine, because if you take all the and I have the figures, but it's too much. If you have all the calories per person that went into Gaza, it's more than 3,000 calories per capita. So I don't know how can this famine continue unless the Hamas has an interest to show famine in Gaza and to put a pressure on Israel so they can get their objectives, which unfortunately is to destroy us.
Well, Israel imposed an 11-week aid blockade on Gaza until May. Aid organisations say it's massively under-delivered aid throughout the war and still continues to do so. That is why we're in the situation we're in.
Well, again, I beg to differ, because since May, as you mentioned, Jonathan, the flow of food has not been interrupted, and there is a massive flow inside. Not to mention, as you show here on your screen, there are also some airdrops, and every country that wants to join in, of course, Israel is happy to collaborate, and indeed we do. So again, nobody is proud of what's happening in Gaza, and we would like to correct the situation. But to do that, there is only one solution, which is to do away with Hamas. If Hamas will leave Gaza, will bring in a new regime in Gaza, which the Palestinians will approve.
Well, Hamas have put an offer on the table, haven't they? They've said, let's get 10 hostages out alive, let's have a ceasefire, let's stop the deaths. Why risk the lives of more hostages by having this huge, potentially lethal ground operation in Gaza City?
Well, I don't think this operation has started yet. So there is still a chance for Hamas to actually agree to the compromise and to what the entire, let's say, negotiators would like to see. And indeed, if you look at Netanyahu, and I do not represent his government, but Netanyahu has now changed the position. No more a piecemeal, but just one package deal where we get all the hostages out, which is also a matter of life and death for them. So we get them all out, and for that, we start negotiations about the end of the war in Gaza. No more negotiations about just a ceasefire, but Netanyahu now is willing to, for the getting all our hostages that languish there, to start negotiation about a complete armistice and the end of the war in Gaza.
OK, we are out of time. Danny Ayalon, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, thank you.
Thank you.